All right, here. This is interesting. Star Citizen's Maelstrom damage system. Okay, cool. This is from Space Tomato. Crafting, destroying, and repairing items and bases. All very interesting topics that I want to know more about from Space Tomato. Let's do this. What's up, Geek? How you doing, buddy?
You guys remember Battlefield Bad Company? Came out around 2008, and it introduced destructible damage in Battlefield. It's like the best destruction in a game at that time. It was so good. It felt really good to just drive a tank through a house to kill the person you were looking for, or just destruct environments because you needed a new path. And a lot of games since then have done it, including a lot of Battlefield games and other games running on the Frostbite engine. But Star Citizen has their own systemic damage system going on. They call it Maelstrom.
Dude, that blew me away when I saw that at CitizenCon. We are so far away from that right now. I need to see that like ASAP. I need to see that in the PU like yesterday, dudes. Like that is exactly the way I want to start to see shit in Star Citizen. That's the way I want to see my physics in Star Citizen. That is everything I could ever hope for, man. Like the fact that I don't come close to seeing that right now when I play it makes me very upset. Like I'm very grumpy when I like I'm happy and grumpy at the same time.
Now this is game wide, and it applies to ships, armor, people, environments, all the things that can break. And one of the best parts about it is it actually should stop vehicles from getting stopped by items that shouldn't stop them, like thin trees and stuff like that. Sean Tracy talked about this before.
Oh, it's such a pet peeve. And chain link fences, you could have small trees will stop you, little rocks. Not forever, of course not. We're working internally on quite a large I want to call it a refactor of our damage system, and it's called Maelstrom, and it's probably been talked about on Jared. I'm not sure how much or not Maelstrom has been discussed. Never. Okay. So basically, it's destructibles. It's how the ships break apart. It's how characters break apart. All these things, things that are in those levels with the tanks, especially with ground vehicles. All those should be physicalized within the world now.
Now that was about Arena Commander, but it is indicative of just how big this system will be for the game. So in today's feature watch, we're looking at systemic damage in Star Citizen. So this is a new system that was mainly introduced back at CitizenCon last year, but before then a couple of devs did talk about it before it was necessarily all that public to us.
With the engineers.
So it's more like an overall destructible physics system.
Yes, yeah. People have probably heard the word Maelstrom in various monthly reports and pieces.
Checking whether that's legit or not.
I'll wipe the board when we get back.
Right.
So,
like Jared's going through the shit with us sometimes, man. Jared gets a lot of heat thrown his way, but damn if he doesn't fucking like feel the feels along with like everybody in this project, man. Like that face sums up all the shit. He's actually feeling it too. Like I legit think that Jared's feeling the shit too, man.
that's the name of that overarching system.
It's like, man,
it's definitely being said.
It's funny because it was always happening at Jared's expense, which was just entertaining to watch. But it's not necessarily new. If you go back to 2015, you'll see a video they posted of how ships are supposed to be damaged based on the damage model that was used during the CryEngine days. But as with most things, it wasn't made for the persistent environment that we're in right now. It didn't work systemically across all ships. It wasn't a solution for the whole thing. It was just kind of a tech demo. So while this 2015 demo gives us an idea of what it was supposed to be, they've completely redone it for the engine that they've actually built now, called Star Engine. But like with most things, as you can see, the roots of this are like a decade old. Now this new system is mostly used for ships, as you'll see from the different videos we're watching throughout this video, but it is going to be used across our bases, across cover that you're taking when you're in a firefight, for objects in the world like usables, cargo, just a lot of different things, and it's way more in depth than just shoot something and it breaks.
Also, you're going from a large object container or multiple object containers to even to quantities of object containers when you start busting this shit down. The problem is the amount of data that populates itself as these object containers start to break down into small object containers. It's like a data explosion. So with the servers is the way they are right now, like I don't know how Maelstrom's going to affect what we've already got, but I can tell you will add a significant amount of load, which you're not really going to see much of this until dynamic server meshing gets in the way that it needs to get in. And then possibly you'll see it in this environment will be in the PU eventually once dynamic server meshing is flushed out, because I don't know how it's going to be able to handle the data explosion that this will bring.
It actually depends on every little small piece that builds a ship, something that we're going to look at in a couple of minutes. But this goes all the way back to around 2017, 2018, when they were working on something called Item 2.0, when they started to assign specific characteristics to every item in the game. Now, they haven't actually covered this in a ton of depth since CitizenCon, but I'm bringing it up because a pretty big milestone seems to have been met in the last monthly report last week. Check it out. For Maelstrom, the development stream was recently published to the main internal branch. This means that other people in the game's development can start to use this in whatever it is they're making. Amongst allowing for large vehicle destruction, it also provides tools to link gameplay events with destruction sequences.
This provides a fresh set of features such as a new unified mesh format grid with OC support per Maelstrom node for large vehicle destruction. Okay. It also provides tools to link gameplay events with destruction sequences, such as a shatter break and integrity changes.
So if something happens in a certain environment or in a mission or a dynamic event and something blows up or gets destroyed, I don't know, maybe like a space station, that can also trigger other things to happen. Not a big deal, but that's the update. It goes on to then say that the unified mesh format brings numerous improvements to the Vulkan pipeline. Yay, Vulkan! And further development will bring Maelstrom destruction entities past the existing legacy destruction and harden the existing pipeline. So, like that old demo we looked at showed some pretty good destruction modeling, and even now when you're shooting ships in the game, there's a lot of fragmentation and stuff breaking and shattering. It looks pretty good, but it doesn't really break up each part of the ship to allow it to be affected separately. It's just kind of an overall damage model of the ship. With this new model called Maelstrom, it actually takes every little piece of the ship and judges its characteristics to decide what the breakability of that piece would be. We're talking about characteristics like tensile strength, stress and strain through cantilever beam modeling, integrity, thickness, elasticity, yield strength, and even freaking Young's modulus. I feel like I'm back in my material science class in uni. This is more fun though. That cantilever beam modeling I mentioned is the most important part of this, I think, and it's actually a pretty big part of real-world engineering and materials. This may be a common way of doing it in other games, I wouldn't really know, but the implications of analyzing the structural integrity of things this way has some pretty crazy implications. It means when you land a shot with a large caliber weapon, where that shot hits could determine if you knock the wing off or you just punch a hole through it. It means puzzles can depend on where you place weights or objects to trigger other things from happening, or when you're platforming and jumping onto things, certain strategies might work and others might not if you jump too far away from a supported area. Now, this is probably something that's going to happen way more in Squadron 42, but the whole point of this system is that it is implemented into the engine so that anybody who's designing the actual missions and story in the game can use it if they see an option to. Hopefully they see options too. It also means that like cargo boxes can tip over objects or vehicles if you place them in the wrong place, and it adds a little bit more of the strategy to picking the center of gravity or wherever you're loading stuff in or out. The physics of the system's actually super far beyond Battlefield Bad Company, which probably makes sense since it's like 16 years old, but it's kind of crazy. Like I'm very interested in seeing how this will work and how they can transfer all the data. Let's talk about just how crazy the amount of data that needs to be transferred.
There we go. There we go. See, this is exactly what I was talking about. I love Tomato for this. This is why I watch him. This is the most important issue. Like the amount of data, the data fucking explosion that will happen because of this. You know, like that. This is exactly what I was talking about.
For this is because all of these objects that can break are modeled through breakable clusters, they call them. These clusters contain all the information that determines the joints and the connections between one part and all of the others, and how they can react to each other and the forces that are applied to them. Yeah. That includes all the values I just mentioned, like yield strength and stress and strain and thickness. So here is what a Gladius looks like if you modeled it with just these breakable clusters. Every single one of those little points contains the...
Holy God. This is one of the reasons why the servers have such issues. That's one Gladius. You guys are wondering like the glitching and everything that we're seeing and all the problems we're having with the physics grid and all these issues that we're having. That's one fucking Gladius right there. Get it? We're definitely going to need more DGs. Limitless. We definitely will.
The information needed to determine whether or not it's going to break and what the forces might take for it to break. It's a lot. And like
What's up, Coob?
Gladius is a small ship. Like one of the
How you doing, buddy?
smallest ships in the game. If you get up to the size of something like a Caterpillar, imagine all the different little pieces and things that need to be modeled for this kind of a system. This is insanity in my opinion. I can't imagine the amount of data that needs to be transferred for a dogfight or a big fleet battle to happen with all these different parts and pieces exploding and flying off in different directions and then sending that back all through the replication layer to all these servers. It's what, but the idea ultimately behind
this is the main talking point, the main reasons why I keep talking about the tech here has to be revolutionary. This has never been done before. When people say, "Oh, DG, you're full of shit. You're full of shit. This has been done before." No, it has not been done before like this ever. And because it's never been done before, basically SIG is doing they're the Lewis and Clark of this research. They are the explorers of this research. They are the first to attempt it. And like I said, and like I always say, I'd rather be for the dreamers and fighting for the dreamers to create something new, to bring about new genre of gaming to everybody, an MMO that is immense with the scale being huge. I'd rather be in that camp trying to do it than not doing it at all. Because it is so easy to throw poop at this. It is so easy to throw poop at this, but yet I don't see anyone else doing it. And tomorrow we're going to watch a video on server meshing happening in, what was it? Ashes of Creation or something of that nature. So I think we got a video planned for tomorrow to watch what's going on that title. To see if it's comparable. Last week, we tried to compare. Somebody was telling me that the scale was just as big as Star Citizen from a game called Starship Simulator, which is interesting. It got my eye. I'm very interested in the title, but it's nowhere near the scale of what Star Citizen is, okay? So now we're going to check out Ashes of Creation tomorrow, and we're going to talk about the server meshing that's going on there. And if I think it's comparable to what's happening in Star Citizen, we're going to see if they actually did it. We're going to see how big the world is, because I don't know too much about that title. So we're just going to dive in and check that one out tomorrow, get as many comparisons as we can with Star Citizen. But this is why I am such a proponent and I'm such an advocate of Cloud Imperium and Star Citizen, because I see that they legit are the only one trying to do this. They're like, nobody else is attempting it, and maybe the creators of Ashes is doing it. We'll check that out tomorrow, but let's keep going.
in the system is that it's going to allow everything in the game to be broken and maybe even possibly put back together. I think this will factor a lot into the repair gameplay that we will someday get, soon, TM, I guess. And all of these different characteristics we're looking at, like strength and stress and everything like that, will probably factor a lot into the crafting system too. So you have to remember, with Item 2.0 and generally with the resource system they're building, every material in the game will actually have a value. So when you salvage a material, you'll get the value of that material you salvaged from the ship. So if you had a Drake ship, let's say, which might have lower quality armor.
Damon asked a question, serious question though. What difference is to the player if 1,000 advanced calculations are involved, or if a random number generator decides if your wing comes off? I think the difference is in the realism of the PvP. Number one, if I'm fighting somebody and my shot hits in a particular portion of a wing that's got more tension in it, I'd like that wing to fucking tear off the way it would hit, with the impact and the velocity and the speed and the mass of the round that I pump into the wing at the particular corner, so that I can watch it shatter very satisfyingly and say, fuck yeah, I did that. You know, like, I want those calculations.
Yes, you're not gonna hit me.
I want a fucking random. I don't want some RNG magic to happen when I fucking fight somebody. I want some real motherfucking shit. Like if I'm pouring hot lead on a motherfucker, I want to make sure that every goddamn bullet hits and that realism just shatters through that ship in such a satisfying way that all 1,000 calculations bring it to an exploding cacophony of wonderfulness in my head, resulting in an orgasmic, shrill fucking sound emanating from the core and the soul of my existence. Do you understand, Damon? So I hope I answered that satisfyingly enough for you. That's the difference.
More than other manufacturers, that would give you a different level of breakability with stress and thickness than maybe something like Aegis, who is building some large military-grade capital bulkheads for applications that require more pew-pew. And at the end of the day, those values factor into the economy, they factor into your gameplay, into what you're doing when you build or craft. If you go back and look at the repair and maintenance document that was published for Star Citizen in 2015, you'll see actually a lot of talk about the materials and the specific elements used in these things. Now, I know it's crazy, but like this is what they're talking about. I don't know how good they're going to be at actually nailing this down or how well it will work.
This info has been out for ages and a half. I remember when this first came out, we did a whole video about this, and I remember this shit.
But this is the goal that they're seemingly moving forward with. And ultimately, that should add a lot of depth to both our destructive gameplay and also our repairing gameplay that is helping to build things back up.
I mean, for every reason that I explained, Damon said, but if that's the case, what do you need all the calculations for? For all the reasons that I explained, and to go further into that, if you would like, Damon, you know what a detail-oriented motherfucker Chris is. You know how detailed he is in his fidelity. He's probably the same way when it comes to the fucking math and the realism, man. And good. This is the everything game. I want this motherfucking thing to be perfect. Is that crazy of me? Absolutely. Are my expectations set on 9,000? Absolutely. Should they be set to anything different? Absolutely not. I understand, though. I understand that most times it will fall short. But the thing is if we hold it to that standard and we want these things, then they're going to shoot for the tech to make it happen. And rather than go for that tech and make that game-changing tech than if they didn't do it at all. That's like telling Elon, it's like, do you really want to take the time out to figure out like self-landing rockets, Elon? And the answer then being like, yeah, I guess you're right. No, make those self-landing rockets, motherfucker, right? Or just half-assing a Neuralink chip, you know? You know, like I don't want a half-ass on anything. I want full, unregulated moon. Full moon on this shit.
Now, I don't know when this is happening. I don't think that this monthly report update means that it's right around the corner. I think it's still a ways out. They're probably getting this working for Squadron 42, and we'll see it at some time later. But they're clearly a lot closer to this than they were a year ago. And I think before it even reaches us, there are still a lot of questions to answer here.
I love the back and forth between Damon and I, because Damon's trying to change my mind on something which I don't even understand what you're trying to change my mind on, Damon. But Damon says, I feel you though, but you ever notice a free meal tastes the best? Spending more on it isn't going to make the flavor any better, if you feel what I'm saying. That's not true, dude. You ever eat a Michelin restaurant 4-star, dude? You ever get a chef from like a fucking Gordon? You ever get a meal from like a chef like Gordon Ramsay? You're comparing like a Gordon Ramsay to a fucking Chili's, is what you're doing. I know the difference between Gordon Ramsay's cooking and motherfucking Chili's. Okay, that's what I'm talking about, Damon. That's why it's important. You get what I'm trying to say? You feel me though, bro? You feel me? Okay.
What happens if you blow up a base in the game? You know, a base where people are going for missions or for loot or just a regular stop off for outposts. If that all gets blown up, does it get repaired by the game? Does it automatically pop back up? Is it gone forever? How does that work? And then how does that work when it comes to player bases, when we can eventually start building our own structures? How do we protect them from being blown up outside of security? Or do we just have to?
We don't. That's going to be the answer, by the way. You will have safe land claims in safe space, period. They won't attack. And if they do, you'll be compensated, or they'll make sure that the game mechanics make it so that your base is safe and that your land claim is safe. In a lawful base system, you're going to be safe. You're not going to be able to reap the rewards of the resources on your land, though, because you're going to get assets or commodities or minerals that are very common. As you go into the unlawful sections of space, the risk raises, but the reward also then raises, and you're susceptible, you're vulnerable in those spots, and that's the way they're going to run it. That's the way it's going to be. That's just balanced MMO gameplay. They're going to figure out how to split it off based upon system security. That's the way it's been in other games. That's the way it'll be in this game. So there's your answer on that.
Deal with the fact that we might find them blown up and need to repair the whole building ourselves. There are things to talk about here.
Yeah, that'll like was Tomatoes worrying about. I'm telling you, this is just straight facts. That's the way they're going to model it. That's the way they're going to design it. You get land claims in unlawful space. You're going to have to protect that shit quite often. But you're going to get paid a lot. So like if you have a larger organization, you got a lot of humans, and then you say, okay, well, watch our shit, because this is where we store all our shit. This is why persistent hangars are coming into play. This is where this persistence starts to come into play. This is the interesting part of where we're at. I don't necessarily think that we're stagnating at all. So like where we're going into is actually quite exciting. We're getting into physicalized cargo right now. We're getting into the very beginnings of the economy. This is actually a time to be very excited. We're moving into the area that I've always talked about since the very inception of this game. In fact, I spent hours and hours, go check out the older videos, of talking about the economy and what I want to see from it. And yes, I'm worried about it. Very much so, because I am a player-driven, demand economic kind of gamer, and a lot of people from EVE Online, SWG, a lot of people that played hardcore crafting, trading games where demand was not simulated, where it came directly from the player base. We were looking for that in Star Citizen, and we're not going to get that. So that's something I'm definitely worried about moving forward. But the positive is we are going into this space now. We are moving a step forward into this space with physicalized cargo, with new missions. It's great. Is it enough? No. Do we need more talk about it? Yes. So I definitely think we should do the Star Citizen live tomorrow. I'm very curious. I feel like I'm going to be let down, but I think it's definitely worth a watch.
And hopefully we get more explanations as we move forward, but I don't think until we see this in Inside Star Citizen or Star Citizen Live and get a bunch of details on this, is it anywhere near ready. So while this was the topic of Feature Watch today, and I think it's a pretty cool feature to watch, I don't think it's coming anytime soon. When there is more info about it though, you should expect a tomato talk on it. I just wanted to give you guys a little update on what's going on with this system and let you know it even exists right now. Thank you for coming to the Feature Watch. If you've never been to one of these, it's where I just pick something from the last week or two that I think is kind of interesting and tell you about my thoughts and maybe some of the history.
Okay, interesting. And then Damon, to finish up, Damon says, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just trying to get the logic. Like the devs can spend 6 years and $100 million on a system to determine when my wing blows off. Well, first off, we don't know that, right? Like that's just kind of speculation, right, Damon? We don't know that they spent 6 years on this. They could have not spent a lot of time on Maelstrom at all. Maelstrom could have been an after fucking thought, right? We don't know unless they tell us. They haven't told us, so we don't know. And we don't know how much money they've devoted to Maelstrom, so, we don't know that. That's just like you saying opinions are based upon your bias, right? Is it worth waiting for the 2% improvement to the feel of it? That's a great question. That's a much better question, Damon. Like Damon saying, is it actually worth waiting this amount of time for that level of realism that Maelstrom's going to give us for like a 2% improvement on the feel of it? Well, again, a great question, but I'd have to attack the part that says 2% improvement, right, Damon? I mean, we don't know what the improvement's going to be versus what we have. I mean, I think at this point, any improvement on the physics is 100% worth it, because the physics right now is goddamn horrible. And I think you and I can agree that the physics right now, any change to the physics, like any tweak to it that can make it more real, is definitely worth the time or money to me, Damon. And I think you would agree with that as well. You know what I'm saying? So I personally, physics has always been one of my biggest gripes. Nothing gets me more upset in Star Citizen than the physics grid, man. Right? So I would rather them try to, like Limitless says, continuously improve the game at any pace. you know, because what we have right now, it's still sloppy. Like the physics grid needs work. The latency with server issues is still horrible. The player experience is getting better. It's getting better. It's getting more unified over time, but it's still got so much work to go. And then, you know, I know a lot of people weren't happy with the most recent change to master modes. I'm still kind of on the fence. I'm still leaning towards, you know, I don't know if master modes was an improvement to me, but like there's a lot of people that are just not really happy with the way master modes was. And it's a legitimate concern. There's a lot of content creators out there that are like, oh, you're whining about master modes. Blah, blah, blah. You know, I hear Virgil say that and a couple others. And it's like, man, I don't know. I feel like there's a disconnect with people out there and what master modes did to the flight experience. I think the flight experience will continually be worked on, though. This isn't the final flight experience. This will not be the final flight experience. So like the flight experience has changed so many times. That's one thing that always changes. The flight experience has changed so many times. If you're a veteran of Star Citizen, we know this for certain. The flight experience has changed so many times. Okay. So like, I think they got to keep working on it because it doesn't feel real yet. It still feels like a leaf on the wind and not in the good kind of Firefly kind of way, which by the way, I introduced to Christy over the weekend and she is loving Firefly. And I am loving Firefly all over again. I think this is the third time I've watched the series. I just absolutely love Firefly. And she's loving it too. And like, you know, the sad thing is like, I know that it ends without an ending. And then I'm going to have to show her the movie. And I'm like, oh man. Like I was watching with her. I think I'm on episode 6 or 7. And I was thinking to myself, oh shit. Like this doesn't really end. You know, like I was like, oh, I can't wait to season 2. Like I've only watched it 3 times in a row, and I was thinking to myself, like, oh, I can't wait for season 2. And I was like, fuck, man, what am I doing to myself? I'm doing this to myself again. But yeah, she loves Firefly, so she's having a good time with it till towards the end. You know, I haven't told her yet. She's gonna be pissed off. Yeah. I just want to see the expression on her face, man. Anyway, I know I'm evil like that. As a total evil thing to do, but I just want to see, you know, I want to experience what it was like for myself. I want to see that look on her face and remember like, oh yeah, that's the feeling. Anyway, great video by Space Tomato. We talked about a lot here. One of the cool things when we watch a Space Tomato video is we talk about our history, a lot of the tech, and most times when I'm watching a Space Tomato video, I think we get more out of watching this sometimes than we do the Inside Star Citizen review, which is interesting. So thank you, Space Tomato. Very cool, dude.